Commander Zara Knox stood in the command center of Kepler Station and watched her world fall apart. Through the massive windows, she could see the Vorthak ships surrounding them like hungry wolves. The enemy vessels looked wrong somehow, as if someone had taken living tissue and shaped it into weapons. They pulsed with a sickly green light that made her stomach turn. The station shook again. Another blast had hit their shields. Zara had 6 eyes, a trait of her species, and she used all of them to scan the different screens around her. Each one showed bad news: shield strength dropping, hull breaches in 3 sectors, life support failing in the outer rings. "Commander, we've lost contact with the medical bay," Lieutenant Kyle Rivers reported. He was human, one of the few stationed here as part of the exchange program. His face was pale, but his hands remained steady as he worked his console. "That's 4,000 civilians we can't reach anymore." Zara felt the weight of those words. 4,000 lives, possibly already gone. The station held 12,000, souls from 7 different species, families who had come here for trade, for new opportunities, for a chance at a better life. Now, they were all trapped in this metal tomb, waiting for the end. The Vorthak had appeared 3 weeks ago without warning. One day the space around Kepler Station was clear. The next it was filled with their bioships. They didn't send demands or try to communicate. They just started firing, slowly wearing down the station's defenses like water-eroding stone. "Show me the shield status," Zara commanded. A hologram appeared before her, the station rendered in blue light with red patches showing where the shields had failed. There was more red than blue now. Captain Frank Morgan limped into the command center, leaving drops of blood on the white floor. His left arm hung useless at his side. "Commander, I need to report. The Vorthak have landed troops in Sector 12. They're not like anything we've seen before." "What do you mean?" Zara asked, though she dreaded the answer. Frank's eyes were haunted. "They absorb our people. The Vorthak drones, they touch someone and that person just dissolves, becomes part of them. We watched Private Chen get consumed. 10 seconds later, there was a new drone that moved like him, knew our defensive positions." He swayed on his feet, and Kyle quickly brought him a chair. The Etherian ambassador entered the command center, floating rather than walking. Shimmer of Stars was beautiful, like a living crystal that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. But today, the colors that danced through the ambassador's form were dark purples and deep blues, the colors of despair. "The prophecies of my people speak of devourers from the void," Shimmer of Stars said, their voice like wind chimes. "We thought they were metaphor. We were wrong. The Vorthak are the hunger that eats stars." Zara turned to her tactical officer, a mechanoid designated Beta 7. "How long until the shields fail completely?" Beta 7's mechanical voice held no emotion, but somehow that made it worse. "At current rate of degradation, 18 hours and 37 minutes. However, if the Vorthak increase their assault, which is statistically probable, we have less than 6 hours. 6 hours. Zara felt the number like a physical weight. She looked around the command center at her mixed-species crew. They all knew what those numbers meant. The nearest Allied fleet was 3 weeks away. Earth's military forces were even farther. No one was coming to save them. "Send another distress signal," she ordered anyway. "Maximum power, all frequencies." "Commander, we've sent 43 distress signals," Kyle said quietly. "No one has responded." "Send another one," Zara repeated. Hope might be foolish, but it was better than despair. Down in the main plaza of the station, thousands of refugees huddled together. The Cathari, furry beings from a forest world, held their children close and sang quiet songs of home. The mechanical mechanoids stood guard, never tiring, never complaining, even though they knew their metal bodies would offer no more protection than flesh against the Vorthak absorption technology. A small human girl sat with her parents, clutching a stuffed animal. Her name was Emma, and she was only 7 years old. Her father, Matt, tried to keep his voice calm as he told her stories about Earth, about blue skies and green grass and oceans that went on forever. Her mother, Beth, held them both and tried not to cry. "Will the soldiers come?" Emma asked. Like in the stories? Matt looked at his wife over their daughter's head. What could he say? That humanity's mighty fleets were too far away? That even if they came, they would arrive to find only an empty station and Vorthak drones wearing the faces of the dead? Someone will come, he said finally. Someone always comes. Back in the command center, Zara received another report. The Vorthak had taken the water processing plant. Within hours, the station would begin to run out of clean water. It was a slow, cruel way to die, but the Vorthak seemed to prefer it that way. They could have destroyed the station in the first day if they wanted. Instead, they were taking it apart piece by piece, letting the fear build, letting the despair settle in. "Commander," Frank said, struggling to his feet despite his injuries, "let me take a team to the water plant. We might be able to take it back." Zara knew it was suicide. Frank knew it too. But dying while fighting was better than dying while hiding. She was about to agree when Kyle suddenly straightened at his station. "Commander, I'm detecting something. A massive energy signature at the edge of the system." "Vorthak reinforcements?" Zara asked, her hearts sinking. Multiple hearts were another feature of her species, and right now all three of them felt heavy. As lead. "No," Kyle said, and for the first time in weeks there was something like excitement in his voice. "The energy pattern is different. It's a jump signature, but it's huge. Bigger than anything I've ever seen." "That's impossible," Beta 7 stated. "No known technology can create a jump field that large." "I'm telling you what I'm seeing," Kyle insisted. "Something is coming, something big." The command center fell silent. Everyone stared at the sensors, watching the energy readings climb higher and higher. Whatever was coming, it would arrive in minutes. Shimmer of stars pulsed with new colors, yellows and golds of hope mixing with the darker shades. Perhaps the universe has not forgotten us after all. Outside, the Vorthak ships began to move, shifting their formation. They had detected the new arrival too. Their bioships pulsed faster, their green light growing brighter. They were preparing for something. Zara stood straighter, pushing down her exhaustion. If this was reinforcements for the Vorthak, then at least it would be over quickly. But if it was something else, if someone had actually answered their call. "All defensive positions prepare for unknown contact," she announced over the station's communication system. "This is not a drill. Something is coming through jump space. Be ready for anything." In the plaza, Matt pulled his family closer. The other refugees looked up, sensing the change in the air. Even the mechanoids turned their sensors skyward, watching and waiting. The energy readings peaked. Space itself seemed to tear open, reality bending in ways that made the mind hurt to witness. And through that tear came ships. Not one or two, but 15 vessels, angular and aggressive, painted in gray and black with designations written in human script. Kyle laughed, actually laughed, tears streaming down his face. Those crazy bastards, they actually did it. They jumped inside a gravity well. The lead ship's identification appeared on the screen. USS Vengeance, Earth Defense Force. The humans had come. Private Lisa Grant was eating breakfast in the mess hall of the USS Liberty when everything changed. She had just taken a bite of scrambled eggs when the alarm started blaring. Not the normal drill alarm they were all used to, but the deep, bone-rattling sound of an Omega Black alert. Her squad leader, Sergeant Tony Chen, was on his feet immediately. "That's not a drill. Everyone to the hangar bay, full combat gear, move." Lisa had been in the Earth Defense Force for 3 years, but she had never heard an Omega Black alert outside of training videos. It meant humanity itself was under threat. As she ran through the corridors of the ship, other Marines joined the flow, all heading to the same place. The USS Liberty was one of Earth's newest warships, part of a fleet that had been on routine patrol near Saturn. Lisa had thought it would be a boring deployment. She had been wrong. Colonel Jack Barnes stood on a raised platform in the hangar bay, waiting as 500 Marines assembled in less than 3 minutes. His face was grim, and Lisa noticed he was already in full combat armor. "Listen up, Marines," Barnes began, his voice carrying over the crowd without need for amplification. 40 minutes ago, We received a priority message from Earth Command. Kepler Station is under siege by the Vorthak. 12,000 civilians, including 300 human families, are about to be wiped out. A murmur ran through the assembled troops. Everyone knew about the Vorthak. They were the nightmare that kept admirals awake at night. A hive-mind species that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but empty husks behind. The nearest allied fleet is 3 weeks away, Barnes continued. We're 5 days away at standard jump, which is why we're not doing a standard jump. We're going to perform an emergency jump directly into the Kepler system, right on top of the enemy fleet. The hangar bay went silent. What Barnes was describing was supposed to be impossible. Jumping that close to a star's gravity well would tear a ship apart. At least that's what every other species in the galaxy believed. Sir? A corporal near the front raised his hand. Isn't that suicide? Barnes smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. 6 months ago it would have been, but our scientists have been busy. We figured out how to reinforce our jump fields using rotating gravitational matrices. It's never been tested in combat, but the lab boys say it will work. We're about to find out. Lisa felt her stomach drop. They were going to test an experimental technology by jumping directly into a battle zone, but then she thought about those 12,000 civilians, about human families waiting for death, and her fear transformed into determination. Gear up, Barnes ordered. Full combat load, and break out the special packages. We're bringing sonic disruptors. The sonic disruptors were humanity's secret weapon against the Vorthak. 6 months ago, a scientist named Dr. Stone had been studying whale songs when she noticed something odd. The frequencies used by Earth's whales caused unusual reactions in samples of Vorthak tissue captured from a destroyed scout ship. Further testing revealed that specific sonic frequencies could disrupt the molecular bonds that held Vorthak drones together. Lisa and her squad rushed to the armory. The new combat armor was unlike anything Earth had used before. It was partially reverse-engineered from captured Vorthak technology, mixed with human innovation. The armor was alive in a way, able to adapt to different threats, to seal breaches, to enhance the wearer's strength and speed. This is insane, Private Danny White said as he checked his rifle. We're jumping into hell. Better than letting those civilians die, Lisa replied, securing her helmet. Besides, when has humanity ever done things the easy way? It was true. Humanity's history was written in blood and determination. They had nearly destroyed themselves in 3 world wars, had faced plagues that killed billions, had survived ice ages and supervolcano eruptions. They were the species that looked at impossible odds and said, let's try anyway. 15 minutes later, Lisa was strapped into a drop pod with her squad. The pods were another human innovation, designed to punch through enemy lines and deliver troops directly to combat zones. Each pod was equipped with shields that could survive capital ship weapons fire for exactly 17 seconds. It didn't sound like much, but 17 seconds was a lifetime in combat. Captain Amy Foster's voice came over the ship's communication system. All hands, prepare for emergency jump. If you're religious, now would be a good time to pray. If you're not, maybe consider starting. The USS Liberty and 14 other human warships aligned themselves in formation. In the command ship USS Vengeance, Admiral Kate Phillips gave the order that would go down in history. All ships, initiate jump on my mark. Let's show the galaxy what humans are made of. Mark. Space twisted, reality bent. The human ships disappeared from Saturn's orbit and crossed 5 light years in an instant. The impossible made possible through human stubbornness and ingenuity. They emerged in the Kepler system like avenging angels. The USS Vengeance materialized less than 1,000 kilometers from the largest Vorthak mothership and immediately opened fire. Railguns, weapons that used magnetic fields to accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed, sent tungsten rounds tearing through organic hull material. The Vorthak reacted quickly, but they were still surprised. No species had ever jumped this close to a star. It was supposed to be impossible, but humans had made a career out of doing the impossible. Drop pods away, Barnes commanded. Lisa felt the pod launch, the acceleration pressing her into her seat despite the dampeners. Through the small window, she could see Kepler Station growing larger, could see the Vorthak ships moving to intercept. Her pod shields flared as enemy fire struck them. 15 seconds to impact, the pod's AI announced calmly. A Vorthak biofighter moved to block their path. Lisa watched as one of the other pods deliberately rammed it, the Marine inside triggering his pod's self-destruct to clear a path for the others. She didn't even know his name. 10 seconds to impact. The station's hull rushed up to meet them. Lisa could see scorch marks and breaches where the Vorthak had already broken through. She could see bodies floating in space, frozen in their final moments. 5 seconds. Brace for impact. The pod hit the station's hull like a meteor. Shaped charges blew a hole through the metal and the pod pushed through into a corridor beyond. Lisa heard the hiss of atmosphere equalizing, felt the pod's walls blow outward to create instant cover. She was moving before the smoke cleared, her rifle up and ready. The corridor was dark except for emergency lighting, and there were bodies on the floor. Not human bodies, but Sithari and Etherian, their faces frozen in expressions of terror. Then she saw her first Vorthak drone up close. It had once been a person, she could tell that much. But now it was something else, flesh reformed and reshaped into a weapon. It moved wrong, joints bending in ways that shouldn't be possible. Lisa activated her sonic disruptor. The weapon hummed, building up charge, and then released a focused beam of sound that human ears couldn't hear. The drone stopped mid-step, its body beginning to vibrate. Then it simply fell apart, dissolving into organic sludge that steamed on the corridor floor. "Move up," Chen ordered. "We need to link up with the defenders." They pushed forward through the station, leaving sonic beacons behind them. These devices would continue broadcasting the disruption frequency, preventing any Vorthak from following them. It was like leaving a trail of poison for the enemy. In space, the battle was turning into something the Vorthak had never experienced. Human ships didn't fight like other species. They didn't maintain neat formations or follow predictable patterns. They fought like pack predators, coordinating their attacks to overwhelm individual targets before moving to the next. The USS Liberty launched its fighter complement, single pilot craft that danced between the larger ships like angry wasps. Each fighter carried a nuclear warhead and a pilot willing to use it. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the battle unfold. The Vorthak fleet was responding now, their bioships flowing into new formations like water finding its shape. It was beautiful in a horrifying way, dozens of living vessels moving as one mind. "Deploy sonic mines, pattern Delta 7, she ordered. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. The mines launched from tubes along the ship's hull, small black spheres that disappeared into the void. They weren't much to look at, but each one contained a sonic generator that could disrupt Vorthak tissue at a range of 50 kilometers. The humans had learned to turn sound itself into a weapon. "Captain, the Vorthak mothership is charging some kind of biological weapon," her tactical officer reported. "Energy readings are off the scale." Amy studied the display. The mothership's surface was rippling, forming what looked like a massive organic cannon. "Interesting. They're adapting already. Target that weapon with main guns. Fire." The railguns spoke again, sending metal death across the void. But the mothership's flesh flowed like liquid, sealing the wounds almost as fast as they were made. The biological cannon continued to grow. "Captain, might I suggest the Moscow Protocol?" her first officer said quietly. Amy considered for a moment. The Moscow Protocol was named after Earth's Third World War, when the city of Moscow had been saved by a desperate tactic that should have been impossible. "Do it. Signal the Liberty and the Constitution to follow our lead." The three human ships suddenly accelerated toward the mothership, their engines burning at dangerous levels. The Vorthak, thinking the humans were attempting to ram them, diverted power to forward shields. It was exactly what Amy had hoped for. Now, full reverse thrust and deploy the payload. The human ships seemed to stop in space, their momentum arrested by emergency thrusters that pushed their crews to the edge of consciousness. But physics still applied. The missiles they had launched continued forward at their original velocity, hidden from sensors by the ship's engine wash. The Vorthak realized the deception too late. 12 nuclear warheads, each wrapped in a shell of sonic disruptors, hit the mothership simultaneously. The explosions were bright enough to cast shadows on Kepler Station's hull from 10,000 kilometers away. Inside the station, Lisa Grant and her squad had linked up with a group of defenders holding the central plaza. The mixed group of aliens stared at the human Marines like they were seeing mythical creatures. Commander Zara Knox approached them, her 6 eyes taking in their strange armor and weapons. "You actually came. When everyone else abandoned us, you came." "That's what humans do, ma'am," Sergeant Chen replied. "We're too stubborn to know when to quit. What's your situation?" Zara quickly outlined their position. The Vorthak held 60% of the station, including critical systems like water processing and food storage. The shields were failing, and they had thousands of civilians who needed protection. "We can work with that," Chen said. He turned to his squad. "White, take 3 Marines and retake the water plant. Grant, you're with me. We're going to show these aliens how humans deal with invaders." Danny White nodded and selected his team. As they prepared to move out, a mechanoid approached them. "I am designated Beta 9. I will assist. My chassis is immune to Vorthak absorption." "Good to have you," White said. "Can you interface with the station's systems?" "Affirmative. Then you're our new best friend. Let's move." Lisa followed Chen deeper into the station. They moved differently than the other defenders, checking corners with practiced ease, covering each other's blind spots. Humans had been fighting in enclosed spaces for thousands of years, from castle sieges to urban warfare. They knew how to clear a building. They found their first group of Vorthak drones in what had been a shopping district. The creatures were feeding on something, and Lisa tried not to look too closely at what. Chen held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. They attacked simultaneously, their sonic disruptors humming in harmony. The drones didn't have time to react before they were reduced to organic sludge, but the sound attracted more. Dozens of drones began pouring from side corridors. "Fall back to the checkpoint," Chen ordered. They retreated in good order, firing as they moved. Each Marine covered the others. No one running, no one panicking. It was a dance they had practiced thousands of times. At the checkpoint, they had prepared a surprise. Corporal Alice Brown had set up an automated turret with a sonic disruptor attached. As the drones rushed forward, the turret opened fire, creating a wall of sound that no Vorthak could cross. "I love human engineering," Brown said with a grin. In space, the battle had taken a new turn. With the mothership damaged, the smaller Vorthak ships were less coordinated. Captain Sam Cooper led his fighter squadron in what humans called the Crazy Ivan, a maneuver that involved flying directly through the enemy formation while deploying mines behind them. "Stay tight, people," Cooper said over the comm. "Remember, the enemy thinks in straight lines, we think in spirals." It was true. The Vorthak hive mind was incredibly efficient, but it was also predictable. It thought in terms of optimal solutions and direct approaches. Humans thought in terms of chaos and controlled insanity. Cooper's fighter dove beneath a Vorthak cruiser, so close he could see the organic hull pulsing. He fired his missiles point blank, then pulled up hard, the G-forces making his vision gray at the edges. Behind him, the cruiser's belly exploded outward. On the station, Kyle Rivers was working with the station's systems, trying to restore power to critical sections. His fingers flew across interfaces designed for different species, adapting on the fly. "I can reroute power from our ships," he told Zara. "Human reactors use controlled microsingularities. It's basically a tiny black hole in a box." Zara's eyes widened. "That's insane. A black hole? On a ship?" "Like I said, humans are crazy," Kyle replied with a shrug. "But it works. Give me 10 minutes and I'll have your shields back online." Meanwhile, Danny White's team had reached the water processing plant. The place was crawling with Vorthak drones, at least 50 of them. A frontal assault would be suicide. "Beta 9, can you access the plant's emergency systems?" White asked. "Attempting now," the mechanoid replied. After a moment, "Success. I have control of fire suppression." "Perfect." Here's what we're going to do. You're going to trigger every fire suppression system in the plant simultaneously. The water and foam will confuse their senses. Then we go, in hard and fast. It was the kind of plan that only humans would think of. Use the environment itself as a weapon. Turn the battlefield to your advantage. Executing, Beta 9 said. Alarms began blaring throughout the plant. Water and foam burst from hundreds of nozzles, creating instant chaos. The Vorthak drones, adapted to absorb organic matter, found themselves blinded and disoriented by the chemical. Foam! Go, go, go! White shouted. They charged into the plant, sonic disruptors firing. The drones couldn't coordinate their response, couldn't see the threats coming. In 3 minutes, it was over. 50 drones reduced to sludge, and the water plant was back under Allied control. Back in the command center, Kyle had succeeded in connecting the human ship's power to the station. The shields flared back to life, stronger than ever. The Vorthak, bioprojectiles that had been slowly eating through the hull, suddenly found themselves stopped cold. How? Shimmer of Stars asked, colors of amazement dancing through their crystalline form. The power requirements alone should be impossible. Humans cheat, Kyle said simply. We don't accept impossible. We just find a way around it. Outside, the human fleet had formed a defensive perimeter around the station. Admiral Phillips had arrived with reinforcements, 30 more ships that had made the impossible jump. The Vorthak found themselves outnumbered for the first time in their recorded history. But the humans weren't just winning through superior numbers or firepower. They were winning through innovation, adaptation, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Every time the Vorthak adapted to one tactic, the humans switched to another. When the Vorthak started jamming communications, the humans switched to laser pulse signals. When the Vorthak released clouds of organic chaff to block sensors, the humans used gravitational detection. This is what humans do, Amy Foster said, watching another Vorthak ship break apart under concentrated fire. We're the species that survived ice ages and plagues, that turned wolves into dogs and rocks into tools. We don't just adapt to challenges. We break them down and rebuild them into advantages. The tide of battle had turned, but the war was far from over. The battle for Kepler Station had been raging for 12 hours when Lisa Grant found herself in the station's lower maintenance levels, fighting alongside the most unlikely partner. Beta 9, the mechanoid, moved with mechanical precision beside her as they cleared corridor after corridor of Vorthak drones. Your species fights differently than others, Beta 9 observed, using its built-in plasma cutter to seal a door behind them. You seem to embrace chaos rather than avoid it. Lisa checked her ammunition count and smiled grimly. On Earth, we have a saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy, so we learn to make chaos our friend. She was jury-rigging a captured Vorthak weapon to work with human power cells, using nothing but spare parts and determination. The bioweapon was disgusting to handle, warm and pulsing like it was still alive, but it packed a punch their standard weapons couldn't match. This should not function, Beta 9 stated, scanning her work. The power frequencies are incompatible. Should not and will not are two different things, Lisa replied, connecting the final wire. The weapon hummed to life, glowing with an unhealthy green light. There we go. One Vorthak killer. Human modified. Above them, the space battle had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen. Colonel Barnes had deployed what the humans called the Swarm Protocol. Hundreds of small single-pilot craft launched from the larger ships. Each one was barely bigger than a shuttle, carrying a single nuclear warhead and a pilot with nerves of steel. Captain Sam Cooper led the swarm, diving through the organic tentacles of a Vorthak battleship. The tentacles tried to grab his fighter, tried to absorb it into the ship's mass, but he was already gone, dancing away like a leaf in a hurricane. Remember, people, Cooper said over the comm, we're not on suicide runs. Deploy your payload and teleport out. Your families want you home for dinner, not as heroes on a memorial wall. It was another human innovation. Every pilot had an emergency teleport beacon that would pull them back to their carrier ship at the last second. The Vorthak didn't know this. They saw humans apparently willing to die by the hundreds. and it introduced something new into their hive mind. Fear. Private Danny White was experiencing his own version of chaos in the station's food production center. He and his team had retaken it from the Vorthak, but now they faced a different problem. The biodrones had contaminated most of the food supplies with their absorption enzymes. Thousands of civilians would starve if they couldn't find a solution. "Wait," said Emma's father, Matt, who had volunteered to help once the fighting died down. "The enzymes are organic, right? On Earth, we use radiation to sterilize food. Would that work here?" White looked at the civilian with new respect. "You might be onto something. Beta 9, can you calculate the radiation dose needed to neutralize Vorthak enzymes without making the food toxic?" "Calculating," Beta 9 responded. "Yes, it is possible. We would need to use the medical bay's radiation equipment." "Then let's get it down here," White said. "Marines might win battles, but civilians win wars." In the command center, Kyle Rivers was performing his own kind of miracle. He had not only restored the station's shields, but had actually improved them. By combining human and alien technology, he had created something new. "I'm calling it a harmonic shield," he explained to Zara. "It oscillates at the same frequency as our sonic weapons. Any Vorthak drone that touches it gets shredded." Zara watched in amazement as a wave of bioprojectiles hit the shields and simply dissolved. "Your species has been spacefaring for less than a century. How do you know so much?" "We're good at breaking things and putting them back together," Kyle said. "It's basically what human kids do with their toys. We just never stop doing it." The Vorthak Collective was experiencing something unprecedented. For the first time in their existence, they were losing. Not just being delayed or inconvenienced, but actually losing. Their drones were being destroyed faster than they could create new ones. Their ships were burning in space, and the humans kept coming up with new tactics. When the Vorthak adapted to the sonic weapons by changing their molecular structure, the humans switched to cryoweapons that froze them solid. When the Vorthak created heat-resistant drones, the humans used acid. It was like fighting an enemy that had 1,000 different ways to kill you, and was inventing new ones on the fly. Sergeant Tony Chen had set up a command post in the station's central plaza. The area had been transformed into a field hospital and refugee center. Human medics worked alongside alien doctors, sharing techniques and technology. "Look at this," one of the medics, Corporal Alice Brown, said to a Sithari healer. "Human medical nanobots. We inject them and they repair tissue. At the cellular level." The Sithari's fur rippled in amazement. "This is beyond our medicine. You could heal any wound with this." "Not any wound," Brown admitted. "But we're working on it. Humans are hard to kill, so we got good at fixing ourselves up." It was true. Humans were not the strongest species or the fastest or the smartest. But they were quite possibly the most resilient. They could lose limbs and keep fighting. Take wounds that would kill other species and survive. Push their bodies far beyond what should be possible. In space, Admiral Kate Phillips had arrived with the main human fleet. 50 more ships, each, one loaded with weapons and filled with Marines ready to fight. But she brought something else too. Hope. "This is Admiral Phillips to all Allied forces," she broadcast on all frequencies. "The Vorthak are in retreat across 3 systems. Humanity stands with you. We will not let them take another world, another station, another life. Today, we draw the line." The Vorthak mothership, damaged but not destroyed, was trying to open a jump portal. If it escaped, it would return with reinforcements. Captain Amy Foster wasn't about to let that happen. "All ships, concentrate fire on these coordinates," she ordered, marking a spot on the mothership's hull. "That's where their jump generator is." It was a guess based on energy readings and intuition, but Foster had learned to trust her instincts. Hundreds of weapons spoke as one, turning that section of the mothership into molten slag. The jump portal collapsed, trapping the Vorthak in the system. On the station, Lisa Grant had made it to the upper levels where the heaviest fighting was taking place. She found herself standing beside a group of Etherian warriors, their crystalline bodies reflecting the flashes of weapons fire. "How do you not fear death?" Shimmer of Stars asked her. "You fight as if you welcome it." We don't welcome death, Lisa replied, firing at an approaching drone. We just refuse to let fear of it stop us from doing what's right. On Earth, we have a saying, everybody dies, not everybody truly lives. She charged forward, leading the Etherians in a push to retake the command deck's outer ring. Her modified, Vorthak weapon carved through drones like they were made of paper. Behind her, inspired by human courage, the other species followed. The battle was reaching its climax. The Vorthak, desperate now, had unleashed their final weapon. They were combining all their remaining drones into a single massive organism, a living siege engine that could tear through any defense. Colonel Barnes watched it forming through the station's cameras. It was huge, the size of a building, all teeth and claws and absorbed flesh. Well, that's new, he said calmly. Deploy the Zeus package. The Zeus package was humanity's answer to the unstoppable force. It was a single warhead that combined nuclear, antimatter, and sonic technologies. It had never been tested because the scientists weren't sure if it would work or if it would tear a hole in reality itself. Sir, are you sure? His aide asked. No, Barnes admitted, but I'm sure that thing will kill everyone on this station if we don't stop it. Sometimes you have to roll the dice. The warhead launched from the USS Liberty, guided by the best pilot in the fleet. Sam Cooper volunteered for the run, knowing he would have to get dangerously close to ensure a direct hit. This is Cooper, I have the package, making my run now. He dove toward the station, the massive bioconstruct turning to face him. Tentacles the size of buildings reached out, trying to swat him from space. He danced between them, his fighter's engines screaming in protest. 10 seconds to target, he announced, preparing for emergency teleport. The construct opened what might have been a mouth, revealing rows of teeth made from absorbed metal and bone. Cooper flew straight toward it, deploying package. Teleporting. Now! The warhead entered the creature's maw just as Cooper disappeared in a flash of light. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the construct began to glow from within, light pouring from every crack and seam. The sonic disruptors activated, first, causing it to vibrate at a frequency that made everyone's teeth ache. Then came the nuclear fire, followed by the antimatter annihilation. The explosion was visible from the planet below, a new star burning in the sky for just a moment. When the light faded, the construct was gone, not even atoms remaining. The remaining Vorthak forces began to retreat, their collective mind finally understanding that they had met their match. For the first time in their existence, they ran from a fight. Humanity had done more than save Kepler Station. They had proven that the young species from Earth were not to be underestimated. They had taken their greatest weakness, their capacity for violence, and turned it into the galaxy's shield. The Vorthak Collective had never known fear before encountering humanity. For countless generations, they had been the predators, moving from system to system, consuming everything in their path. They were the hunger between the stars, the darkness that ate light. But now, as their surviving ships fled from Kepler Station, something new pulsed through their shared consciousness. Doubt. Admiral Kate Phillips stood on the bridge of the USS Constitution, watching the enemy retreat. Her staff wanted to pursue, to press the advantage, but she held them back. Let them run, she said. Let them tell the rest of their kind what happens when you threaten those under humanity's protection. 3 days had passed since the battle ended. Kepler Station looked like it had been through hell because it had. Entire sections were open to space, sealed only by emergency force fields. The walls were scorched and melted in places, and the smell of ozone and burned metal hung in the air. But it was alive. The station and its people had survived. Lisa Grant sat in what had been a luxury restaurant, now converted into a makeshift medical center. Her armor was off for the first time in days, and she was finally able to eat something that wasn't a combat ration. Across from her sat Shimmer of Stars, the Etherian ambassador whose crystalline form now pulsed with gentle blues and greens of gratitude. Your people have given us more than victory, Shimmer of Stars said. You have given us hope. We had forgotten how to fight. We had become too civilized, too peaceful. Peace is good, Lisa replied, taking a sip of something that was supposed to be coffee but tasted like motor oil. But peace without the ability to defend it is just waiting to be conquered. On Earth, we learned that the hard way. Around them, humans worked alongside other species to rebuild. The integration was remarkable. Human engineers shared technology, freely teaching mechanoids how to build sonic weapons, showing Centauri engineers how to reinforce shields using rotating frequencies. They held nothing back. Kyle Rivers was in the command center with Commander Zara, helping to coordinate the relief efforts. Supply ships had begun arriving from Earth and allied worlds, bringing food, medicine, and materials to rebuild. Your government has approved the technology transfer? Zara asked, her 6 eyes showing surprise. All of it? Even the military applications? Every bit, Kyle confirmed. The Senate voted unanimously. They figured the best defense against the Vorthak is making sure everyone can fight them. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. It was a uniquely human perspective. While other species hoarded their advantages, humans shared them. They understood that their survival depended not on being the strongest, but on making sure everyone was strong enough. In the medical bay, human doctors were performing miracles. They had brought regeneration tanks that could regrow lost limbs, nanobots that could repair damage at the molecular level, and techniques that seemed to border on magic. A Centauri child who had lost her leg to a Vorthak drone was watching in wonder as it slowly grew back in a tank of blue fluid. How did your species develop such medicine? The child's mother asked Dr. Grace Park. Necessity, Grace replied simply. Humans are fragile compared to most species. We break easily. So we got very good at putting ourselves back together. Every war we fought, every disaster we faced, we learned something new about healing. Down in the engineering section, Colonel Barnes was meeting with representatives from the Allied Species Council. They had come to see the human technology firsthand, to understand how a species that had only been spacefaring for 50 years had managed to defeat the Vorthak. This is a micro-singularity reactor, Barnes explained, showing them a containment unit no bigger than a shuttle. It generates the power of a small star, completely clean, completely renewable, and completely insane, one of the representatives said. You're using black holes as batteries? We prefer to think of it as aggressive recycling, Barnes said with a grin. We take the most destructive force in the universe and make it work for us. That's kind of humanity's thing. The representatives looked at each other nervously. They were beginning to understand that humans didn't think like other species. Where others saw impossibilities, humans saw challenges. Where others saw destruction, humans saw opportunity. In the weeks that followed, the story of Kepler Station spread across the galaxy. The young species from Earth, the ones others had called primitive and violent, had stood against the darkness and won. More importantly, they had shown that they would stand for others, not just themselves. Applications to human military academies increased 10,000%. Every species wanted to learn the human way of war, not for conquest, but for defense. The humans welcomed them all, establishing exchange programs and training facilities. Captain Amy Foster was appointed as the first human instructor at the Allied Military Academy on Centauri Prime. Her first lesson became legendary. War, she told her mixed species class, is not about killing. It's about protecting. Every weapon you carry, every tactic you learn, every strategy you master, has one purpose: to make sure those who cannot fight never have to. The Vorthak, meanwhile, had retreated to their core systems. For the first time in their existence, they built defensive stations instead of attack fleets. They had learned fear, and with fear came caution. Some even said they detected attempts at communication, single drones approaching frontier outposts, with what might have been peaceful intentions. 5 years after the battle, Kepler Station had been completely rebuilt. It was stronger now, a symbol of unity between species. The main plaza had a monument at its center, a simple obelisk with names carved in 100 languages. The names of everyone who had died in the siege, and everyone who had died to end. Elisa Grant, now a captain, returned for the dedication ceremony. She stood with Kyle Rivers, who had become the station's chief engineer, and watched as children from dozens of species played together in the shadow of the monument. You know what the most amazing thing is? Kyle said. Before the siege, these species barely talked to each other. Now look at them. It was true. Human children were teaching Sithari younglings how to play soccer. Mechanoid units were helping Etherian artists create light sculptures. The station had become a melting pot of cultures, all bound together by shared survival. Emma, the little girl who had asked if soldiers would come, was now 12. She ran up to Lisa and hugged her, something that would have been unthinkable before the siege. Physical contact between species had been rare, but humans had broken that barrier like they broke everything else. "Are you staying?" Emma asked hopefully. "For a few days," Lisa replied, "then back to patrol. The Vorthak are quiet, but there are other threats out there." It was true. The galaxy had taken notice of humanity's rise. Some species saw them as protectors, others as potential threats. But all agreed on one thing. The galaxy had changed forever when human soldiers landed at Kepler Station. Admiral Phillips, now the supreme commander of the combined human-allied fleet, gave a speech that was broadcast across known space. "Years ago, we faced extinction. Not just humanity, but all peaceful species. The Vorthak showed us that the universe could still be cruel, still be dark. But we also learned something else. We learned that when we stand together, when we share our strengths and guard each other's weaknesses, we are unstoppable." She paused, looking out at the assembled crowd of humans and aliens. "Humanity brings something unique to this alliance. Not our weapons or our technology, but our spirit. We are the species that looked at the void between stars and said, we can cross that. We looked at death itself and said, not today. And when we saw others in danger, we said, not on our watch. This is our promise to the galaxy. Where there is darkness, we will bring light. Where there is fear, we will bring hope. And where there is danger, we will stand guard. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. Not as rulers, but as friends." The crowd erupted in celebration, but in a corner of the station, something else was happening. A small Vorthak drone, different from the others, approached the station's shields. It didn't try to attack or absorb, it simply waited. Security forces surrounded it, weapons ready, but Lisa held up a hand. "Wait. Look at it. It's not aggressive." The drone extended something that might have been a communication device. When they activated it, a message played in broken galactic standard. "We learn fear. We learn stop. We learn peace. Possible." Everything had changed. The Vorthak, the unstoppable devourers, were trying to communicate. They had evolved, adapted, learned. Just like humanity had taught them to. Lisa looked at Kyle, who nodded. They forwarded the message to Admiral Phillips, who made a decision that would define the next chapter of galactic history. "Bring them in," she said. "Under heavy guard, but bring them in. If humanity can teach the galaxy to fight, maybe we can teach it to forgive too." The transformation that had begun with human soldiers landing at Kepler Station was complete. The galaxy had found its guardians in the most unlikely place, a small blue world whose people had nearly destroyed themselves, only to emerge as the shield against extinction for all. And in the years that followed, children across 100 worlds would learn the story. How when all hope was lost, when darkness seemed certain to win, humanity arrived. The crazy apes who refused to give up, Tawi,